The 49ers and the Bears took a swim. Cam Akers' opportunities were slim. Baker, Flacco, and Russ were all out for revenge, but in the end, their former teams got the win. Welcome to the Mishpo. All right, we are back, week 2 of the Mishpo, and as you can see, I'm actually in my living room this time. Last episode, I said I was in my living room. Well, in fact, I was in my kitchen, which, to be fair, the view that you saw from behind me was the living room, but at the time, I was in the kitchen, and Lily, she wants to come inside. She was just outside. And so, because I've got this fancy wireless microphone on, I'm going to walk over there and let her in while still talking. But yeah, crazy week, huh? Oh, hey, Lily. Come on in. And yeah, so when I get back over there, which should be in about 2 seconds, I will crack open my beer and we will continue. So, yeah, as I mentioned, it was pretty cool. There were 3 revenge games this week. We got ourselves a Yingling lager. Got it at a gas station in Indiana. But yeah, Flacco, Russ, and Baker all coming back for revenge, but none of them could get the job done. Especially that Broncos game on Monday night was kind of embarrassing, I would say, for the Broncos. Definitely should have gone for it there on 4th and 5 with Russell Wilson and like a minute left in the game and 3 timeouts instead of trying to kick a 64-yard field goal. But whatever works for you guys. And it didn't work, so I guess whatever doesn't work for you guys. So yeah, we will get into the trades. There were 2 trades in this past week, and actually both of them came in the time between when I recorded last episode and when it came out, so that was kind of fun. But I'm going to take a quick sip, and then we'll get into those trades. So, in an attempt to cut down my roster size, which I did successfully, I would say, because I did, I traded Jerry Judy and Drake London to Derek for Chris Godwin and Jameson Williams. As it turns out, both of the players I received are injured at the moment. I knew Jameson was hurt, which was the main reason I wanted him, so I could put him on my IR. But then Chris Godwin, after playing and looking great after his torn, was it Achilles last year, came back and on a low ball, he, I guess, hurt his hamstring a bit. So he's going to be out for a couple weeks, which is awesome. But I do like him quite a bit for when he comes back, which hopefully it's not a lingering issue with the hamstring there. And then Jerry Judy and Drake London. Those are both young, obviously good players. Jerry Judy had that long touchdown on Monday night, and that looked pretty good. So he'll probably be more involved going forward, and you can see Lily in the frame right there. And then Drake London, he actually had a pretty quietly good game as well in the Falcons game there. And so, honestly, I think Derek probably won this one a bit. Obviously, when my guys are coming back and healthy, it might be a different story. But for the moment, it sounds pretty good in terms of what Derek got there. But then Derek traded Nico Collins and the aforementioned Drake London to Bruce for Devontae Parker, Mike Davis, and a 2023 8th-round pick. Devontae Parker, I believe he did not have a great game. I can't remember. I just that New England offense wasn't super great as far as I can remember. I don't even know if they won for sure, but Mike Davis ended up being dropped by Derek at some point since he got the guy. He actually is 7 hours as of when I'm recording this, which, for the record, is 3:45 on Wednesday. So it's a little bit different. And then, obviously, the pick It's obviously great. Picks are great. New England ended up losing 7-20 to Miami. How did Devontae do? He got 1.9 points, one reception from 2 targets and 9 yards. So yeah, not super great. With all that said, I definitely think that Bruce won that trade. 2 young guys. Nico Collins, I guess I don't really know how well he did, but I mean they kept up with Indianapolis there, so pretty good for him. He had 2 receptions on 3 targets for 26 yards, so that's better than Devontae Parker. And then, like I said, Mike Davis was dropped, so he's not really involved in the trade. But yeah, I would definitely say Bruce won that trade. Hopefully there are brighter days for Devontae Parker going forward, as he definitely is put in the position to be the number 1 receiver there in New England, but time will tell. And these dogs, I tell you, it looks like Loki wants to come in and Lily potentially wants to go outside. So while you think about what I'm going to be doing for this power rankings for this week, I'm going to go take care of dog stuff. So maybe I will go in the office, my office that is, to film these going forward, just because these dogs 2 weeks in a row now have been a pain in the ass. And it's not like they're not a pain in the ass when I'm not recording. It's just more inconvenient because I'm trying to film a video for you guys. But it's okay. As now we are on to the, I guess actually not the power rankings quite yet. We've got to recap last week's matchups. So firstly, we'll start with me versus Colin. I would say the biggest takeaway for me for this game, well, there's 2. Gabe Davis did really well. But Cam Akers got 0 points, which I'm hoping will go up this week. I don't think I'm going to start him, but we'll see. But other than that, Trey Lance and Darnell Mooney both did poorly. And as I mentioned in the Limerick, they basically were playing in a monsoon. It was crazy how much rain there was in that game. So that obviously did not help me at all. So Colin ended up getting the victory pretty easily, 104.32 to 88.31. And there's only room to go up for me because I scored the lowest points on the weeks. The exact opposite of that occurred in this matchup. It is T-Corn versus Lincoln. Pretty poor performances from some of the players. Dak Prescott, obviously not his fault. He broke his hand and is out for apparently 4 weeks, but it's going to be probably more like 6 to 8, maybe. Only 5.46 points from him, so that clearly does not help your team. But then on the other side, I mean, Tigran just had a plethora of players score lots of points. Saquon Barkley, I believe he's currently the number 1 running back on the league so far. Michael Pittman did great, almost 30 points from him. Justin Herbert, 23 points, 18 from Javonte. So just some really good performances. I mean, obviously, there were a couple duds over there on the T-Corn side. The Dallas Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb, 4.9 points. So probably going to be a bit of a rough patch for the upcoming Cowboys for the foreseeable future. But all that said, T-Corn ended up getting the win, 155.21 to 110.91, and T-Corn was the highest scoring team on the week. Alrighty, moving us on to Bruce versus Brian. And I was going over last week's episode, and I believe I skipped this matchup in my predictions. So sorry to those 2 folks, those 2 guys, Bruce and Brian, but I guess you guys just weren't important enough to be covered. No, it's okay. I'll get you this week. Both of you, I promise. But we had some good performances, especially Josh Allen. Always great, 33.48. Cool, 420. That's 4.2 from Tony Pollard. 17 from Tyreek on his new team. And from Rashad Bateman, 13.9. So that's decent. And Drake London, as I mentioned before, he ended up with 12.4 points. 5 receptions for 74 yards. Oh my God, this dog, I tell you. But Brian's side had, I believe, the number one receiver on the week in Justin Jefferson, scoring almost 40 points. So that's pretty good for him. But unfortunately, he fell just a bit short. Bruce ended up getting the victory here, 118.68 to 109.8. So tough fought battle, but Justin Jefferson can't do everything, even though it seemed like he could during that Packer game. Moving us on to Adam versus Abby. This one was probably the closest matchup of the week, and a bit of an upset, you could say. But I predicted it, so that's pretty sick. Joe Burrow had a decent 20.22 with his leading receiver, or second leading receiver, going out, T. Higgins, with a concussion. And then A.J. Dillon and A.J. Brown, the two A.J.s, got pretty involved, scoring 20.1 and 25.5 respectively. So those two are pretty cool. Jalen Tolbert did get 0. I believe he didn't play for you, Adam. But Abby's side, Cordero Patterson, 22.6. Cooper Kupp, obviously really good, 31.8. But yeah, I mean, it was a bit lower scoring. Now, even especially we have the two flex spots, so you'd think we'd have some higher scores, but it still is fairly low. But Adam did get the win, 115.92 to 111.55 for Abby. Moving us on to Fiala versus Michael. I'm quickly going to let that stinky dog in, and she's not going out for the rest of this recording. Lily, you need to control yourself. Just lay on the couch and be quiet. No, don't go in the chair. She likes to steal my chair sometimes, and I was not going to allow that. Anyway, Fiala versus Michael. Good performances from a decent amount of players. DeAndre Swift got 26.5. Lamar Jackson got 21.22. And Kareem Hunt had 23 points. Pretty solid there from Fiala's team. Those were just the highlights. Michael was a subject to that monsoon game with Cole Kmet getting 0 points. Devonta Smith also got 0, but he was not in that game. He played against Detroit. Speaking of Detroit, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Look at that transition. 20.4 points. A really good performance from him. And Devontae Adams, 30.1 points, but it's whatever. We don't need him. And Antonio Gibson, pretty good, 20 points. But unfortunately, it was not enough. Fiala got the win, 121.12 to 105.78, which moves us on to the final matchup of the week. Pretty high-scoring matchup. I believe we had the second highest-scoring team in this matchup with, spoiler alert, State Farm. Pretty solid performances. 33 points from Patrick Mahomes, almost 34. 15 each from Fournette and McCaffrey. Probably wanted more from McCaffrey there, but it didn't end up mattering in the end. Dalton Schultz got 13.2. 22.7 for Michael Thomas. Seems like he could be back. And Christian Kirk, 17.7 points. Pretty good. On Caleb's side, his defense was very solid. 18.5 points. LA Chargers. Pretty good there. Pretty good. Jamar Chase, always great. 28.9. 15.5 from James Conner. And then kind of disappointing performances probably for you from Russell Wilson and Alvin Kamara, getting 17.8 and 7.6 respectively from those two guys. And State Farm ended up getting the victory here, 145.25 to 116.4. Which brings us on to the power rankings. It's pretty much the same. Obviously, I shifted some stuff a bit. Unfortunately, I had to drop myself a decent amount of spots with that disappointing performance from my team from this past week. So we'll just run through these real quick. Don't want to linger them. I kind of touched on the teams already. You can see each other's teams. You don't need to whatever. So number 14, despite the victory last week, Derek I put at number 14. Mitchell being out for 2 months definitely made part of that decision for me, but things just happen. So, and also just remember, I don't make the rules. I'm just presenting the facts and opinions. So, Sam at number 13 also got a loss last week, actually against Derek. So it's kind of interesting how I did that, or how it was done. Who's to say who did it? But number 12, we've got Adam. Barely beating Abby, but some players have bad weeks. Number 11, we've got Lincoln. Lost to T-Corn, but anyone would have done that. Not too bad of a score, but it is what it is. Number 10, I've got myself. Don't want to linger on it, but definitely think there are brighter days for my team, but I'm not prepared to put myself any higher. Number 9, we've got Abby. Decent performance, wasn't able to get the dub, but I still think she's got a really good team. Number 8, we've got Caleb. Lost against one of the highest scoring teams, but did have a decent score himself. And I do really like a lot of his players, especially his receivers. Number 7, we've got Michael. Decent game from you. Can't quite remember where you were on this. Didn't get the victory, but went against one of the better teams in the league, so not too much to be ashamed of. Number 6, we've got Colin, the bad boy who beat me. Decent performances. Maybe should be a bit lower on the list, but I don't make the rules. Number 5, we've got Brian. Decent scores from him. Like players on your team for sure. Obviously, that's why I put you at 5. And I definitely think better days are ahead for you. Number 4, we've got Bruce, the man who so rudely beat you. But I do think he's got a bit better of a team, so it's not, I guess, too surprising. Moving us on to number 3, Alex Fiala. Great running backs you got over there. That's probably the strongest point of your team, but the rest of the team is not something to laugh about either. Do have some injury risk with Keenan Allen being out now, so we'll see what happens with him, which will move us on to number 2, second highest scoring team on the week, and was number 1 last week. We've got State Farm. Like I said, decent team, very good. Definitely can expect some higher scores from some of your guys going forward, so you may be back on that one spot more sooner than later, but we'll see how it goes. And, of course, number 1, our defending champ, T-Corn. You really hit good with that Saquon guy. He did really well. It's number 1 running back on the week. Obviously, Justin Herbert is really great. And despite scoring the highest points, I do still think there's room for improvement from your team. And honestly, you could say that about most teams. Week 1, just getting back into it. Don't really know who you are, what's going on and everything. So, that is T-Corn at number 1. Those were this week's matchups or power rankings. And I'm going to take a quick sip, and then we'll dive into this week's matchups. You can probably see Lily in the back, too. Hello. So, first matchup of the week, we've got myself versus Lincoln. Obviously, there was the guys that I am a bit concerned about. Cam Akers, obviously at the top of that list. Not sure if I would be starting him. We will see. But then there was the guys that did not great last week that I'm expecting more from. Trey Lance and Darnell Mooney, that is. Hopefully Mooney doesn't do too much, as he is playing against the Packers. But I am expecting great performances from a decent amount of my guys, so we'll hope and we'll see if they can provide that for me. And on Lincoln's side, you got to get a new you got a new quarterback, as Dak, as I mentioned, broke his hand. So you got Carson Wentz slotted in there, who actually didn't do that bad. And then you also are dealing with injury possibility with Najee Harris. So we'll see if he gets any action. And if he doesn't, I've got his backup. We'll see if I play him, depending on what happens with that situation, I do think this is a close one, and this may be a bit of a favoritism pick here, but I will be picking myself in this matchup. I like my upside from my guys, and I just don't want to be disappointed again. And once I start picking against myself, then that's when all hope is lost for me. So, moving us on to Caleb versus Colin. A couple cool boys with a C name. We've got some pretty good quarterbacks, Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson. Bounce back games for both of them, as they both didn't do super great last week. And you could kind of say the same thing for some running backs in this matchup too, Alvin Kamara and Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon looked really good, and I guess he had 21.5. So never mind, not talking about Joe Mixon, but I am talking about Alvin Kamara, had the 7.6 points. Mike Williams over there on Caleb's side, going to be the number one target. My gosh. Gets me choked up. Over there for the Chargers, as Keenan Allen is out, I believe, for this week's Thursday matchup. So we'll see how well he can do in that lead target role. And then over on Colin's side, there's a George Kittle injury risk again for the second straight week. We'll see if he can play. And then Allen Robinson, see if he can bounce back after his abysmal performance last week. Trust me, I know how that goes with those Rams. I will be picking Colin in this matchup. I do think it's going to be a pretty high scoring and pretty close one. So we'll see how that shakes out. Moving us on to Michael versus State Farm. We've got some decent players. Christian McCaffrey, pretty good guy at football, that is. Probably a great guy in real life too, but we'll see if he can have a better performance than last week against the New York Football Giants. A bit worse of a defense probably than the Cleveland Browns. And we'll see how some other guys do. Another Carolina Panther, DJ Moore, also didn't do super great last week. Only got 8 points. Sure to be improvement from him, right? And we'll see if Michael Thomas and Dalton Schultz can keep it up for you. And Christian Kirk, State Farm, that is. And then we've got a bounce-back game potentially for Tom Brady, the old boy. 11.38 points, so not great, obviously. But there were some good performances on your team. As I mentioned, Devontae Adams was great, and so was Amon-Ra St. Brown. But there was a couple guys you probably want more from, Cole Kmet and Cortland Sutton. So we'll see how well this all shakes out. And I did pick Michael for this winner here. So maybe a bit of a, oh boy, now Loki wants in. Maybe a bit of an upset pick there. But, that's just how I'm feeling. And like I said many times before, and I will happily say it again. Come on in. No, that's not what I'm talking about. But I didn't make the rules. And so, yeah, that's Michael versus State Farm. Moving us on to T-Corn versus Sam. One of the highest the highest scoring team on the week last week against Sam. I can't remember how we did, but pretty good quarterbacks. Herbert and Hurts going. Hey, we got a couple JHs. Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts going up against each other. And then some decent running backs over on T-Corn's side with Javonte and Saquon. And then on the other side, hopefully we can get some better performances from your running back, Sam, Josh Jacobs, and Zeke Elliott, especially Zeke. I guess Jacobs did not super great, but better than Zeke, that is, for sure. Julio Jones, we'll see if he can take a step forward now that Chris Godwin's going to be out for a bit. We got both Denver running backs in this matchup. So it should be a fun one. I did pick T-Corn. T-Corn's got a great team. It's kind of hard to pick against him at this point. Which moves us on to Fiala versus Brian, two of the highest rated teams in my power rankings, which doesn't really mean much, but, it's just a cool thing to say. Dalvin Cook, see if he can get a bounce-back game against the Philadelphia Eagles. Only scored 13.8 points, which is not very Dalvin Cook-like. And then Travis Etienne, also hoping for a bounce back game from him. He only scored 7.5 points last week, which obviously you don't really know what he is in the NFL, as he's never played an NFL snap before last week. In a regular season game, that is. But we'll see how he can do. And then we've got some cool tight end action, hoping for some Darren Waller goodness. Seeing if he can get a bit better performance this week against Arizona, who's not a great defense. So you're probably hoping for some good performances from him. I did end up picking Fiala for this matchup. So we'll see how it goes. I believe both teams are undefeated. I could be 100% wrong, but I guess it doesn't really matter if I'm wrong or not. I'm wrong a lot. So moving us on to Bruce versus Adam. We've got obviously Josh Allen, great quarterback, but also Joe Burrow, pretty good quarterback. And then we've got some decent running backs, Chubb and Pollard for Bruce, and Eckler and Dillon for Adam. And I think I actually like Adam's running backs better. And then we've got A.J. Brown and Mecole Hardman against Tyreek Hill and Rashad Bateman. And A.J. Brown, he did great this past week, and I'm expecting another good performance from him. He's a stud. So we'll see how well he can do. And then we've got a couple Packers over on Adam's side. A couple more, that is, with Alan Lazard potentially playing this week, hopefully for us. And Robert Tunney, was hoping to get more from him. Did get 6.6 points from him from 3 receptions. So hopefully he'll do a bit better this upcoming week. And then we've got some young boys over on Bruce's side with Elijah Moore, hoping better from him. Only got 9.9 last week. And then Drake London, decent showing in his first matchup in the NFL, 12.4 points. So the more he gets used to the offense, the more he'll probably, do better. So I am actually going to go with Adam for this matchup. A bit of an upset there, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Which moves us on to the final matchup of the week. We've got Abby versus Derek. Speaking of Derek, we've got Derek Carr over on Abby's team. So I wonder if that's a conflict of interest for her. Probably not. But also on Abby's team, we've got pretty solid running backs, Cordero Patterson and Aaron Jones. And then some pretty good receivers too, Cooper Kupp and Deebo Samuel. He'll probably be taking a bit of a increased role as a running back now that Mitchell is out, which kind of hurts for Derek, I'm sure, because he's the one that has Mitchell. And then some other guys, Pickens, Hawkinson, and Watkins could also be good, but could also not be super good. And we've got Devin Duvernay and Deontay Johnson, a couple NFC or AFC North players who did pretty good last week. Duvernay with the 21.4. Don't know if we'll repeat that, but pretty good that you got him. And then 11.5 for Deontay. I'm sure he'll go up a bit. Jerry Judy had that long touchdown and ended up with 20.2 points, so I'm sure he'll try to build off that performance. And then, of course, we've got a couple Bills players, Stephon Diggs, who did quite good last week in that Thursday night opener, 26.2, no big deal. And then Zach Moss did all right, 6.6, probably hoping for more, but, definitely could have gotten less. And then Kirk Cousins did real well, 19.8, 9.08, and David Montgomery in that monsoon, only 8 points, expecting him to go up a bit as well. I will be picking Abby, having her have the bounce back win here, and Derek fall, and they're both be at 1-1 at the end of this week if things go to my prediction. So yeah, that is this week's matchups, and that is going to wrap up this week's episode of the Mish Po. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you like the change of scenery. We had a couple dogs in here. I got up a few times, which is cool. And this time I'm just letting my hair out, as you can see, which is quite long. I'm not sure if some of you probably haven't seen me in a bit in person. But yeah, my hair is kind of long. It can be in a ponytail. But yeah, so that'll be that for this week's episode. So with that, thank you and thank you. Alrighty, we've got our flip. There are the troublemakers and a couple of their toys in my shoes, but we're going to do this flip on Fiala. Oh, so close. I'll get you guys one time this week. Won't I, Lily?